Greetings. Welcome to Spiritual Warriorship and Hare Krishna. I welcome all the returning spiritual warriors and also welcome any new spiritual warriors to be. These spiritual warriorship seminars are discussions from spiritual warrior books by His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami, who left this material world in June 2005. Excuse me. Those of you who are fairly regular listeners and some who may have known him, there is a biography, Black Lotus. It's called The Spiritual Journey of an Urban Mystic. For those who may not be familiar, I'm going to read to you what this book is about as it states, all right? It's good to know something about the one you're hearing from, because what I'm finding, I knew him for a number of years before he left the world and heard his lectures, sat in on his classes. But now as I'm reading his words and endeavoring to share with you, he's become even more extraordinary than I felt that he was. And the words he's giving are very powerful. So this Black Lotus, this volume explores the life and mission of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami, 1950 to 2005, an African-American seeker who rose from an impoverished condition in a Cleveland ghetto to become a dynamic, worldwide spiritual leader. Black Lotus examines the broad range of his life, from his early years as a child evangelist to his work as a teenager with the civil rights movement. Here, as a junior leader of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, he directly assisted Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Soon after arriving at Princeton University on a scholarship, he becomes involved in black nationalism, at the same time excelling as a student of international law, race relations, psychology, and yoga. Interesting background. His journey took a surprising turn when he affiliated with the Hare Krishna movement, known in India by its traditional name, Vaishnavism. This ancient science of the soul, with its embrace of universal spiritual principles, would provide the framework for his life's mission. Global ministry, community building, interfaith dialogue, material and spiritual welfare work. Thus, he has been recognized internationally as evidenced both by his coronation as a high chief in Warri Kingdom in Nigeria, and in his becoming the first African American Vaishnav guru with disciples in every major country of the world. Black Lotus is an uplifting story enriched by the personal testimony of family, friends, college professors, mentors, disciples, and other travelers on the spiritual path. As a result, the reader is offered an intimate look at the Swami's life and times, which blossoms on these pages in floral detail as the beauty and sublime perfection of a lotus rises in majesty above its stem, which is buried deeply in the clouded waters. So, Black Lotus is a tribute to one who rose above numerous obstacles and limitations, inspiring others to do the same. Black Lotus, the journey, the spiritual journey of an urban mystic. You can purchase this book at Krishna.com store. Can you see it? I don't want you to miss it. This is what you'll look for. Okay, now I feel better introducing the author of the book that I'm discussing tonight, and I told you there's 6 spiritual warrior books, all to help us to grow spiritually. So his idea behind the series of spiritual warrior books is for us to tune into the concept of spiritual warrior and to use it in a positive way. And he gives us the tools and methods and guidelines in order to do that. Because his presentation of spiritual warriorship is to help us. Help us how? Help us become grounded in understanding who we are as spiritual beings. And as I say, if you've been following this series, you'll hear in his writings, he's always reminding us, we are eternal beings. It's also to help us to cope with life in trying times. Now, of course, if we become grounded in understanding of who we are as spiritual beings, our coping with life in trying times will be much easier. And it's also, these spiritual warriorship concept is also to help us use weapons to battle the tide of depression, anxiety, and feelings of hopelessness that's sweeping our society. And what are those weapons? The weapon of love, humility, compassion, faith, and self-knowledge. And the concept of spiritual warrior also is to help us to develop an internal positive dialogue for making the mind our friend. So we need the mind to be a friend, not telling us all the nonsense that it can go way back. But as we make the mind our friend, then we're able to deal with whatever trials we're going through. And just another reminder, Bhaktitirtha Swami states, the true spiritual warrior strives to master the weapons of love, humility, compassion, faith, and self-knowledge. And what is our battleground? Our battleground is the realm of human consciousness. That's where we wage war against ignorance and lust that's really pervading our human society. So the objective of a spiritual warrior is a civilization where people live in harmony with each other and with God, awakened and in tune with the effulgent spiritual environment that is available to us. Remember, this world is not our home. It's a higher home, and we have to learn by becoming grounded in our spiritual knowledge. So, with that in mind, we endeavor to develop ourselves. Have to develop. You have to go within. You'll hear that quite often from his writings. And then, with the self-knowledge we require, we share our understanding with the people we meet. And then give them the tools that they need to discover and experience the truth of themselves. So, that's quite an effort to make. And again, tonight, I'm going to put out the idea for those of you who are fairly regular or have been hearing these classes. If you found any aspect of what we've been presenting helpful to you, or if you have practiced any concept that we've presented to you, and have gotten any realizations or have sensed any change in your own consciousness and in your environment, if you go to the chat room, it would be nice and appreciated if you would make a note of that. Again, as I tell you, I'm getting used to looking at you out there through the camera. I feel we're developing a nice relationship. And I'm also realizing, based on scripture, I don't have to worry my mind, agitate my mind about the results of what I'm doing, because my endeavor here is to serve my teacher, mentor, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, and to share with you what he has given that has been helpful to me. So, where are we tonight? It's interesting. We began with the 17 practices for attaining success in the School of Love. And guess what? I don't remember where I left off. They're all so exciting. Of course, usually I do a review. But I'm curious if there's anyone out there who has access to the chat room and remembers what number practice did I leave off last week. If you remember, it would be nice to hear. Although, as I said, I'm going to repeat them and review. I love reviewing because it's helpful to me, and hearing things repeated sometimes, they begin to click in. And the whole idea of what we're hearing is to imbibe it and to take it as a part of ourselves and to begin to practice it in our daily lives. That's what this is about. Practicing and experiencing in our daily life. Okay. This is from Spiritual Warrior 2. Spiritual Warrior 2. Okay? Transforming lust into love. And what did we go through? I love going back. In discussing from this book, there were a number of things we discussed. And I will just go quickly. In case you knew, you'll know what we went through. In case you've been here long enough, it'll maybe click in and refresh. Because we started out discussing what love is not. We discussed what love is and the source of love. And based on that discussion, we entered the school of love. And when we entered the school of love, the first thing we were reminded that life is a school of love. And that our soul is made for love. And he reminded us if we're not happy, we have forgotten our identity and purpose. He reminded us also that our natural position is to give and share love. And we talked about any type of relationship we have is an opportunity. Remember how many times he used that word, opportunity. Every experience is an opportunity to share love. And our essential asset is full dependence on the Lord. Always remembering God and never forgetting Him. So I hope with that quick review and what we're going through and have been, that some of you will have made or may be making a serious commitment to your spiritual growth, because that's why we're here. Okay, so 17 practices for attaining success in the school of love. That's in chapter 6, the chapter on love between man and woman. He says, to develop meaningful relationships with members of the opposite sex, we must become whole human beings who have no need outside ourselves for solutions. Instead, we must learn to turn within ourselves and connect with higher spiritual realities. Important. We must learn to turn within ourselves and connect with higher spiritual realities. How do we make such a connection? He says the following 17 points and practices, which summarize much of our discussion so far, offer guidelines for attaining the wholeness that can serve as a foundation for a strong, enduring relationship with a partner. And isn't that what we want? So, we'll go through, I'll go through without maybe too much detail unless you have questions. And don't forget, write your questions as we, let me ask now, at this point, are there any questions on what we have spoken of so far?
John asks, how do we make the mind our friend?
How do you make the mind your friend? By letting it know it's not going to run you crazy. It's really like an entity sometimes. And you speak to it and you let it know. You need to know what it is you want for your spiritual life, for a higher understanding, as we said. And then you can talk to the mind, or you can tell the mind what it is you are going to do, you plan to do. I tell you how I use my mind, and it follows, but it has to know that you're not going to take its nonsense anymore. Because most of us let that mind run us, do this, do that. And the mind, of course, is controlled by the senses. We went through that in the lust chapter. The eye sees something, oh, that looks nice. And mind says, oh, yeah, it looks nice. You want it? Let's go get it. But if we learn to control the senses, and then we can master the mind. I remember years ago when I was living in an ashram at the Gita Nagri farm, and I was having trouble getting up to get to Mangal Arti. I wanted to go to the 4:30 program in the morning. So what I did at night, I talked to my mind. Now you listen. I'm getting up at 3:30 in the morning because I'm going to Mangal Arti. Serious. Went to bed on time. Now, if you want to do that, you've got to have some regulation what time you go to bed. And believe it, the next morning, I woke up, I looked at the clock, it was 3:30. I got up, I bathed, dressed, and went. But this was allowing, because the mind can say, it's too early. You don't want to get up. Go back to sleep for another 5 minutes. But I had set it up, and again, as I say, this is work we do. So you make your mind your friend by letting it know it cannot master you, you will master it. And you do this by talking to it. If you've been with us when we did the 12 qualities of a spiritual warrior, wonderful commentary from Bhakti Tirtha Swami on that mastery of the mind, because that's the first quality of a spiritual warrior, is sense control and mastery of the mind. So I hope that helps. If not, you can ask a further question. Any other questions? Okay, so let's get into this, begin the 17 practices. Nobody said where I left off, right? Okay, so let's go through it. Number 1, love is necessary for good physical and spiritual health. Someone who is not part of a loving relationship is 10 times more likely to experience chronic disease and 5 times more likely to have a mental breakdown. And I'm sure those of you out there who have been following health practices, this is not news. We've seen, even, we hear of an elderly couple have been together for so long, caring for each other. One partner dies shortly after the other one dies. And we've seen people with physical illness, and we question, or you've seen reports that there was a divorce after so many years, or a divorce, and that person lamenting and worrying, some physical ailment comes up. I found 2 things last week I shared on the internet. One had the heading, Why Love is Good for Your Health. It says, love doesn't only keep us happy, it fights disease, boosts immunity, and lowers stress. And that's what Bhakti Tirtha Swami has been talking about, how to reconnect with that, because love is dormant within us. We're part and parcel of God. God is within us, in our hearts, and that means there's love there, but we let it get covered. So he's been trying to pull that out, and that's what. This was another article called Love Provides Good Health. And this states that researchers at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland asked a simple question of 10,000 married men with no history of chest pains, angina. Does your wife show you her love? Those men answering yes were found to experience significantly less angina, chest pain, in the next 5 years than husbands responding no. And Yale scientists surveyed 119 men and 40 women before they submitted to an angiography test. Those who reported feeling most loved and supported were the same subjects found to have markedly less blockage of the arteries. So it isn't a wild statement he's making here. Number 2, love is not a business arrangement or a contract with an escape clause for difficult circumstances. His commentary: we should not have this attitude or mood with our partner, and surely not with God. We cannot approach the Lord in a mood of bargaining, and we should not begin our meditation and prayers with a long shopping list. Okay, God, if you do this, then I'll do this. Oh, I'm supposed to chant your name and cry out. Well, you see, I need that job, or I want to get, some people, that's the mind. That's not mastering the mind. The mind is to know I'm a spiritual being, part and parcel of the Lord, and I'm his servant. It's not that he's our servant. Prayers of this nature are not based on unmotivated, unconditional love, and do not help us develop the highest consciousness necessary to make us whole. We do not have to remind God of our needs. Right now, whatever's going on in your life, he says we do not have to remind God of our needs. The more we accept the fact that our lives are always under God's control, the more we understand the true prayer means, thy will be done. When we can sincerely offer such a prayer, we're becoming more integrated beings. 3, love is a decision that we can personally make at any time and under any circumstance. Talked to somebody today, and she was, I think, having trouble at work, and because I'm all enthused now that I'm getting all this guidelines of love, so I'm putting love out. I'm working on it, developing it, and expressing it myself. But I've been sharing some of these facts with, and it's really no one out there can stop us from giving and sharing love. But we have to make the decision. He says, no one has the power to make someone else love him or her, but each person can always give away love. It's like, oh, I really want that guy, I want that girl. Oh, how will I make them? You can't do that. You have to give in order to receive. And we have the opportunity every day. Number 4, love is learning to love our true selves. Those who do not care for themselves cannot love others deeply. The first love affair we must consummate must be with ourselves. One aspect of self-love is to observe 4 basic principles. No drugs or intoxication, no gambling, no illicit sex, and no meat eating. All of these, you're thinking, what does that have to do with loving self? Wait a while. All these indulgences can weaken our basic constitution. The more we allow ourselves to live according to natural laws, the more surrendered we become to the will of God. If we lack self-esteem, We're refusing to see ourselves as children of God and do not have sufficient love and devotion to share with anyone else. And also, if you think about this, anyone who's, what he says, no drugs or intoxication, if a person is involved in that, they're doing violence to themselves. It's not a natural way of living. If you do violence to yourself, you'll do violence to others. And there's no way to love because you're not loving yourself to care enough for yourself. So if we're looking for a partner, or thinking about a partner, we want a partner who takes care of his or her health and who lives a spiritual life. Number 5, love is about a quest for wholeness and, if necessary, having a partner to share one's wholeness with. Again, that ball is back in our court. A quest for wholeness, but we have to work on that ourselves. Let's see what he says. People who think that some other person will make them complete, or people who are waiting for love to come their way, will remain impoverished and waiting. The more we become loving and whole, the more we will draw similar connections from the universe. And 6 follows this. It may clarify. Love is not about 2 desperate people who are only trying to find fulfillment for themselves. They're really coming together to rob each other. His comment. 2 extremely needy, selfish people coming together cannot make each other happy. They are too busy trying to take and get something for themselves at the expense of the other person. I remember maybe hearing him in a class or a seminar with this, and he gave an example of 2 robbers coming together, trying to have a friendship, but they can't because each one is worried about what the other one might try and take from him, and he's watching over everything. So it's again, if we are looking for someone else to do something to make us happy, it's not going to work. What we have to do, we must fortify our spiritual life. And we do that by reading and hearing and spending time with spiritual people, associating with people of like mind and thought. Number 7, love is a holy relationship in which partners come together to serve and reveal their weaknesses and strengths for betterment. His comments. In an unholy relationship, everyone, especially, hides their weaknesses. Such people are normally interested in erotic love or lust rather than responsible, selfless love. Again, in relationship, we should be friends. It should be a friendly relationship. And in a friendly relationship, you trust each other. You're you're able to talk to each other. And then you can reveal your mind and you feel supported. So even in a marriage, if it's a marriage, there has to be a friendship to be able to have exchanges such as that. And if there's not, then there needs to be maybe counseling or taking time to develop a relationship in that partnership. A friendly relationship in order to feel safe and supported. Because you can't walk around, you can't fortify your life spiritually if you're carrying a load on your shoulders, in your mind, or in your consciousness, and you feel you don't have anybody to talk to about it. Number 8. Love is really the energy and hunger of the soul. Remember in the School of Love, what was he said there? That everybody, there's a hunger and a starvation, and it's really for love. And that the soul is made for love. When we are asking for love, we're asking for a connection with the soul, which is part and parcel of God. That's our teaching, that's our knowledge, self-knowledge, is that we are part and parcel of God. And God himself is within our hearts. And that's the soul. And that soul is made for love. So, when we're desiring for love, it's really asking to connect with God. To connect to the soul, to connect with God. We should not expect love to descend on us like an attack of epilepsy. It must be rediscovered by transforming lust into love. And that's what this book is about. That's what we've been touching on. Thus, connecting us with our own soul and the souls of others. We're all starving for true, unconditional love. Number 9. Love is seeing our partner as a gift from God. We must go beyond merely loving our neighbors as ourselves. We should actually love others, especially our mates, even more than we love ourselves. When we love our partners that much, we realize that they have been given to us as gifts from God, and that we do not own them. We are merely caretakers on behalf of God. And our responsibility is to fulfill the Lord's wishes concerning them. Any attempt to dominate them becomes distasteful. Instead, we should make efforts to bring out their higher qualities. And in order to do that, we have to do what? Know our higher qualities and be living and practicing and living them. And then we can help others bring out theirs. They may be so busy they get covered over and they forget. So that's a practice that will also bring out our higher nature, because as we're making the effort to help one raise themselves up, become more God conscious, we're also increasing ours. He mentions in another, I heard him saying that, in religion it does say, and we hear, love thy neighbor as thyself. But as Vaishnavas, we're studying ancient teachings, and we go a little beyond that. And we see our partner as a gift from God. So, if it's from God, our aim is to please God. So in order to please God, we take care of that gift because He's watching how we take care of it. Him, her. Number 10. Love is seeing our mate as a pathway through which we can return our love to God. He comments, the love we receive from our mates actually comes from the Lord. And our job is to send it back to the Lord. Others channel God's love to us, and we channel God's love to others. What I thought of, what is it, the domino effect, huh? If we can become so understanding of who we are, and we're made for love, and develop and uncover and get connected to God with this love, and we're sharing with one and with the other. She said the purpose of a spiritual warrior is to help our civilization now to become more loving. The Lord is engaging us in play to see what we do with His love. Whoa, how about that? The Lord is engaging us in play to see what we do with His love. Some of us, we've received gifts, haven't we? And we've received gifts from people we love, a parent, a husband, a wife, a child. And when you receive that gift, would you unwrap it nicely, carefully, you open it, whatever it is, eyes light up. Oh, isn't this wonderful? Isn't this thoughtful? And if it's something especially that you have to put aside or you have to take care of, you take care of it, don't you? Because it came to you from someone you felt their love in giving it to you, taking the time to get it, to wrap it, to give it to you. And what he's saying here, our partner, our mate, is given to us by God. He's saying, yeah, I don't know what happened to me. Look what I got. No accident, no coincidence. As he said earlier, it's an opportunity to share love, an opportunity to look at our consciousness, an opportunity to see our mindset. Because there's also a saying, like attracts like. So what we've been hearing in this spiritual and fortifying our spiritual life, as we fortify our spiritual life, we're also mastering the mind to a higher level of consciousness. And as we reach and practice and living in that state of consciousness, we become more loving. And as that goes out, we will attract. That's why he says that one should, somebody not practicing those principles of no alcohol and no drugs and no illicit sex and no meat eating, they're doing violence. And they're losing out on opportunities. So we have to be careful. He says the Lord is engaging us in play to see what we do with His love. We can reciprocate God's love by caring for our partner with great devotion, as if God Himself were present. We can some of these I have to meditate on too, so if I stop for a minute, it's like, okay. We can reciprocate God's love by caring for our partner with great devotion, as if God Himself were present. The love comes from God. Because why? We're His part and parcel. Who said that? And when you love someone, you reciprocate. And as we reciprocate in giving that love, God being pleased with how we're returning His love to Him through our partner, through our family, He reciprocates even more. Number 11. Love is sharing your realization with your mates, which will help raise their consciousness as well as your own. Continually raising consciousness. Comment. Then your relationship will become one of growth and acceleration. What is this? Love is sharing your realizations with your mate, which will help raise consciousness as well, their consciousness as well as your own. Then your relationship will become one of growth and acceleration. If you and your partner are not growing together spiritually, there will eventually be a breakdown in the relationship. Sometimes we fear surrender in spiritual life, afraid of having to give up our identity, or afraid of losing our partner. But we should understand that surrender to the Supreme is an opportunity. There's that wonderful word. I'm beginning to look forward to that word. An opportunity to regain our full identity. Without a spiritual dimension in our lives, we are not integrated and cannot experience deep love. Without a spiritual dimension in our lives, we are not integrated and cannot experience deep love. And what is that spiritual dimension? We talked about that in one of them here, knowing who we are as spiritual beings. That's one of the reasons for him presenting these spiritual warrior books to us. And as spiritual beings, we know that we're part and parcel of God, the Supreme Being, Krishna. We're his part and parcel. Then we have in minute amount his qualities. We have his love within us. We did that when we spoke about the super soul and the Holy Spirit within, there to guide us and direct us. So this is the self-knowledge. When you're hearing these practices and guidelines about love, and if it's confusing or something, it's like the need to have a spiritual foundation, because that's what he's leading us to. That's what he's guiding us to, as guidelines. And we need to read spiritual books. We need to have spiritual association. We need to have the desire that we want to be more spiritual. And then our relationship will develop. And if they're not, just hearing these can begin the desire within. That's what I want in a relationship. That's how I'd like a relation to be. And if you're not getting it enough from these readings, don't forget Spiritual Warrior 2. It's on sale at Krishna.com store. And you can study more, and you can practice more, and you can share it with your mate. This book, Transforming Lust into Love, became the fastest seller when Bhakti Tirtha Swami, when it was published, printed, and put out. It's been translated into, 15, 16 different languages all around the world. People are reading this book, have read this book, and change has happened in their lives. If it's not working, if you're not happy, as he said, it's so many times, we have to look at ourselves. What are we practicing? What are we thinking? What's going on in our mind? Because if we're partners and we're not thinking and acting together on a spiritual platform, then we're not being accountable to God. And everything comes from God. I think in the Bible, even Jesus said, I of myself can do nothing. It's the Father within who doeth the work. So this is what we've been saying. The Lord in the heart, the Father within. He's our guide and director. He arranges things for us. So if we have a partner and we're being accountable to God through our relationship, and we may not have heard this before, we knew it and we forgot it, but trying to pay the bills and get the kids to school on time or whatever, we forget. So this is a wonderful opportunity to hear, to imbibe, to desire, and see the Lord in our heart, how he responds. And again, as he says, for us to be accountable. I want to read in this same chapter 6, but there's question and answers at the end of the chapter, and usually I do that when I finish the chapter. But before I finish, he's looking at the questions today and just reading what he tells us here. What number did I just read? What? Tell me, huh? Can't hear you. Number 11. There's a question that came to him after he gave a particular lecture, and I wanted to share that now. If your mate just becomes more hostile and selfish whenever you try to be unselfish, what should you do? And that happens sometimes. One person really wants to grow spiritually, advance spiritually, get that appetite, that taste to reconnect with God and trying to share, and it's not, I had a flashback. I remember in my marriage, and I don't know what year it was, but somewhere I began waking up and one knew there had to be more to life than what was going on. So I started studying metaphysics and It was a church science of mine, and I started, and it began to make some sense to me that there had to be something going on to feel better about myself and stand tall. And what was happening by this desire for change, by this study I was doing, which was taking me to another level of consciousness, I can know now what was going on. My husband was saying, you must be crazy. Anybody that's got to study the mind is crazy. And for a while, I was beginning to think, maybe something's wrong with me. But as I continued studying and I began to see changes and even began to feel better about myself, whenever he said that, I said, then I'm a happy, crazy person. And I continued studying and trying to advance. So this question, as if your mate just becomes more hostile and selfish whenever you try to be unselfish, what should you do? If you have a partner like that, you do not really have a mate. A mate means a match. Someone who complements you. If a man continues to exploit a woman who is trying to be more loving and concerned, she must realize she is not in a functioning relationship. The more she tries to become spiritual, the more her mate acts to discourage her. She may have to find someone else, or it may be her karma in this lifetime not to have a physical mate. Some people in this life may not be destined to have a partner. This does not have to be a major issue. Oh my God, what you talking about? Everybody got a partner, everybody got a mate. I ain't got one, what's wrong? No, he says this does not have to be a major issue. Because most of us do not remain in these physical bodies very long. And perhaps our partner, our real soulmate, is waiting for us in another lifetime. Oh, doesn't he have an answer? Can you deal with that? I didn't remember this answer myself. All right. I don't know. The pastor's on to my daughter. You know, it's interesting. I have an older daughter. She's 59 years old. Never married. Career person. And I remember I used to say to her, baby, God doesn't want you to be married this lifetime. All right, I must tell her this, maybe next lifetime. Instead of lamenting the situation, that lamenting can be painful. Instead of lamenting the situation, we can use the time to do intense spiritual work. And get ourselves ready for our next step. Because as he said, I'm just trying to flashes of things I've read, that God has a plan for all of us. This is chapter 6, Love Between a Man and Woman, and page 170. I'm reading this question. So he says, now let me read that again. Instead of lamenting the situation, and that's what happens, especially, I don't know about men, because I'm around more female, they especially if they're getting older, which we all do, you can't stop the clock. and there's no mate in their life or man in their life or one that they feel they can deal with, they begin to lament. And that can even lead to illness because they're feeling they're not loved. But what he's saying, the love is there. It's dormant in us. And we have to establish a spiritual life, a connection, so we awaken this love and it begins to manifest in us, and we give and we share. So we can be without a mate but still a loving person. That's what we've been hearing. He says, again, instead of lamenting the situation, we can use the time to do intense spiritual work. And spiritual work is intense. It's not a la-di-da, oh, I'll study this and I'll be spiritual. No. You got to study it. Practice it. Imbibe it. Be around other spiritual people. And even find a teacher that'll help you get through those moments. So do intense spiritual work and get ourselves ready for our next step. Because as we become involved in intense spiritual work, we're really crying out to God. I want your help. I want to connect with you. I want to be closer to you. And God in the heart and everywhere hears us, knows it, feels us, and takes us to the next step. This is why, which one did we read when we can reach a point to say, thy will be done? As we become more balanced, we will experience greater love for a growing number of people anyway. You see? It's going to, once we get in that spiritual study in life, we're going to feel it because it's there within us. As we become more balanced, we will experience greater love for a growing number of people anyway. Not just one, but the people around us, the people at work, wherever. Because that love shines through you, and you'll see people, you look at people smiling now. Because they feel and sense something. You're walking around, oh, I ain't got no man, I ain't got no... No. I've got love within me waking up. He says, then we will find fulfillment from these genuine relationships. So that question I brought up because it sounds like one that might have been on somebody's mind. Well, I do in this relationship, but it ain't going well. So I hope you're hearing. What number was that again? I'm going to mark this. Where did I leave off? I think I left off at 11 because we're doing 17. Love is sharing your realizations with your mate, which will help raise their consciousness as well as your own. Before I close, I want to just again share something from Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, who has many, many books that we need to hear from this founder Acharya that'll help broaden our understanding of who we are, what our purpose is for being here in this material world. This quote is from a book called Journey of Self-Discovery. Srila Prabhupada says, Krishna consciousness is loving consciousness. In the selection Absolute Love, Srila Prabhupada says to his audience, everyone is frustrated. Husbands, wives, boys, girls. Everywhere there is frustration because our loving propensity is not being utilized properly. Srila Prabhupada then goes on to explain how love is most fully experienced when directed toward the Supreme Person, Krishna, God, who can perfectly and completely reciprocate with everyone. This is the secret of lasting happiness. So I'll end there. We'll begin next week with practice number 12. Any questions? Any comments?
John, the person
Where is John from?
UK.
Oh, okay.
And he says thank you for answering his previous question.
Mm-hmm.
He has another question here. There's a lecture by Bhakti Swami, and he talks about the past and how things have happened are the past. If the situation is bad, should we forget what has happened, or what should we do?
Wait, repeat that. There's a lecture, he said, by Bhakti Swami, where he speaks of the path, P-A-T-H?
Past.
Past, P-A-S-T.
Mm-hmm.
See, communication is very important. And then go on, what?
Talks about the past and how things that have happened are the past.
Mm-hmm.
If the situation is bad, should we forget what has happened, or what should we do?
Mm. I remember a class he gave when he talked about that. And I don't know if it was a class on forgiveness, but I remember him saying, if you are thinking of the past and the past situation, the mind brings it so as if it's happening again. So you're allowing it to happen over and over, and you become stagnated. The whole idea is we have to move ahead. If you have been listening to him and do listen to his recorded tapes and classes, there is a set called the Learning the Skill of Forgiveness. It's on btswami.com, I believe. And he tells us how we have to see that past. We have to forgive. We have to know that we want to move ahead. And then we do the practices and things that will clear us to move ahead. And a teacher, a guide, a mentor, or studying the books of a teacher and a guide will help us. Keeping the past is like carrying the cross. You have to get off the cross. Let it go. It's like carrying baggage that's too heavy. And if it's too heavy, you can't think of how to move ahead or how to lighten the load. So yes, it has to be let go. It may not be completely forgotten, depending on what that past is. But we have to know that Krishna, God, He knows past, He knows present, He knows future. And He is the carrier of what's past. He's also got a path for us to get into the future, but we have to lighten our load. So yes, let that past go to the best of your ability. Begin your studies in the present by talking to the Lord, mastering that mind. If the mind goes there, you say to the mind, stop it. I'm finished with that. Now I'm going to think about God and remember God. I'm going to read about God. I'm going to talk about God. The mind will get that message. And then you walk taller and straighter and lighter. And the Lord will take care of the path. whatever it is, people feel no justice was done. I didn't see justice. How could they? God does not take a vacation. He sees everything. He knows everything. And He takes care of everything in His own time, by His own will. And we have to see, what did I learn from that experience? We talked about challenges a few weeks ago. And it's really to look at it and say, did I learn something from that? Am I a better person? Am I a stronger person? Do I feel closer to God now? And can I say, God, you take care of that person. You take care of that situation. And all I want now is to become closer to you. I hope that answers your question. Okay.
You read about how one partner may not like the other partner's progress or interest in spiritual life.
Mm-hmm.
The example was given of a husband not liking with the wife's interest in spiritual life.
Right.
So R.T. Davy Dossie is asking, what happens if it's the other way around?
Same thing. It's not a relationship. Meaning that the wife is not satisfied with the husband's spiritual practices? Is the wife also studying spiritually? Is he becoming fanatic about it? If so, then we need to go to a spiritual authority, or if we're in, have spiritual friends sit down and talk about it and try to bring some balance to it. Or ask yourself why you're not interested in spiritual life at this time. Are you feeling that getting involved in spiritual life will stop you having fun, enjoying life, whatever? It doesn't mean that entirely. But the thing is, the pleasure and the satisfaction is to please God and others. Whereas if we just want to have it for ourselves, then that's out of balance. And it may need some maybe counseling, or just questioning yourself, what does spiritual life mean to me? And if it's important to you at this time of your life, then how can I bring some balance into my life? And if your mate is studying spiritual life, if he's studying Srila Prabhupada works, and he's studying Bhakti Tirtha works that I know of, you all can study them together. If you just get the Spiritual Warrior 2, I'm pushing it tonight, and just together read the chapter, what is love? And what is lust? And then this chapter on love between a man and woman. If you want your relationship to work, now you really got to look deep and see, do I want this relationship to work? Because if you want it to work, there is a way. But you have to begin work on yourself, as we've said so many times. Pointing the finger, his fault, her fault, their fault. No. What in me? What is my spiritual life to me? Read Bhagavad Gita if you have Bhagavad Gita. Take your time and study and question and see. I hope that's helpful. And where is she? I'd like to know where folks are. I can get that much, right? If she doesn't mind telling me.
Another question is just where did you get your t-shirt, or where can someone buy a t-shirt that says Spiritual Warrior?
Oh, listen, I bought this at a, what does it say on the back? I got something on the back. At a festival in Cleveland, Ohio. Must have been 93, 95. But I guess you can get it made up if you're ready to. I don't have any more. I'm so excited about this. And I don't know, but you can have them made up. Folks get T-shirts, and then you can post them and get them into Krishna.com, and everybody will be buying. It's a good reminder, though, isn't it?
RT's from Wisconsin.
Oh, thank you, RT, for being with us.
And everyone says thank you.
Okay, was Bhuvan Mohan there tonight? Oh, was Parameshvara there tonight? Huh, okay. That's all right. I thank all of you for coming, being a part of this, and I look forward to next week. Number 12. Now, if I forget between now and then, somebody will remind me we start with number 12. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.